The woman my brother chose to marry happened to be the daughter of a bank executive.
"Please do not come to the wedding,"
she implored. She despised me, a high school dropout working in construction. My brother's the only family I have, yet she threatened to cancel the marriage if I attended.
"Please do not interfere any further,"
she pleaded. Wanting my brother to be happy, I had no choice but to accept her request. However, where was the groom's brother? My absence caused the wedding to plunge into chaos. My name is Ethan Smith. One morning on my day off, I woke up to a call from my younger brother Jake. "Hey Ethan, you're off today, right?" Yeah, I was actually asleep. I listened to him as I got up and headed to the bathroom. "I met someone I want to marry, and I'd like you to meet her," he said. I was taken aback, and now completely wide awake. I was delighted to see my brother all grown up. Jake and I had always been there for each other. Our mother divorced when we were young, worked on her own, and provided for us. I barely remember anything about our father, because he was rarely at home. I often looked after Jake, who was still in daycare while I was in middle school, in place of our mother, who came home late from work.
"Sorry, Ethan, I have to go to work again. Here's some dinner. Heat it up and eat it with Jake,"
she would say. Got it. I'll give him a bath first, though. He falls asleep in the middle of dinner these days.
"All right, thank you, Ethan."
One day, our peaceful life was disrupted when our mother decided we would go to our grandparents' house. She left us in the care of our grandparents and never returned. Jake, who was still very young, felt lost without our mother and cried every night. During those times, I read him books, held his hand as we slept, and distracted him from his sorrows.
"Where's Mom? Is she coming home today?"
he asked. It always hurt to hear that, and I don't remember when I started saying I didn't know. Our grandparents, despite being angry at our mother, raised us lovingly. I still remember how happy I was to have warm meals ready for me every day. When I began to accept that our mother wouldn't come back, I realized that I was the only one who could protect Jake. When Jake started elementary school and some local bullies started messing with him, I scared them off by swinging around the broom our grandmother always used.
"Whoa, this guy's older brother's crazy, run!"
The reason I started thinking about learning boxing was because I had this compelling desire to become stronger, to protect my little brother Jake. In the end, there wasn't any boxing gym available in our rural hometown in Kansas. Instead, our grandpa took me fishing on his days off. Standing in front of the sea, I felt how small I was. When I cast my fishing line into the water, I felt a sense of calm that I didn't usually experience in my busy life. I grew fond of fishing and started leaving Jake in the care of our grandmother to go fishing with our grandfather. I began going every week, and Mr. Brown, one of my grandfather's fishing buddies, also became a friend. I secretly thought that if my father was still around, he would be about Mr. Brown's age, and it always made me happy when I saw him. "Do you have any idea what you want to be when you grow up, Ethan?" Mr. Brown asked me while we were fishing. I want to be a regular office worker, earn money so my younger brother and grandparents can live more comfortably," I said. "Ethan, you've got a heart as big as this ocean. You'll be fine. Just keep doing your best," he told me. Those words of his have saved me many times since. When I started high school, I studied hard so I could earn money. Then one day, my grandmother fainted. My grandmother was admitted to the hospital, and immediately after, my grandfather fainted too, and he passed away. We were able to hold a small funeral after explaining our circumstances to the people at the local funeral home. Knowing that our grandmother couldn't come, my brother Jake suggested that we go to the fishing spot to look for Mr. Brown, because he thought that Grandpa would be lonely. When we told Mr. Brown about our grandfather's sudden death, he quickly prepared and attended the funeral the next day.
"Ethan, I'm sorry to make you worry. I'll get better soon."
My grandmother, who couldn't attend the funeral, seemed dispirited after my grandfather's death. You take it easy in the hospital. We're fine at home. Jake's gonna be in middle school next year. He's old enough. I reassured her.
Well then, there are things I should tell you, Ethan,
she replied, and during her hospitalization, she told me details about household matters and financial matters. However, just when we thought she was recovering, her condition suddenly worsened, and she passed away. I had to drop out of high school to work at a construction site to support Jake and myself. I'm gonna get a part-time job too, Jake said. You can't get a part-time job when you're in middle school. You need to focus on your studies, I replied. But I can deliver newspapers, he protested. It's fine. I'm earning enough, don't worry, I reassured him. Jake kept offering to work part-time to help out. I want you to study, get into a good school, and go to college, so you don't have to worry about work in the future. I don't mind working as much as it takes for that, I told him. Hearing this, Jake finally started focusing on his studies, entered a prestigious high school, and steadily advanced to college. Now he works at a top-notch company and has a woman he wants to marry. As his older brother, I couldn't be happier. Can I bring my fiancé to your apartment on your next day off? Jake asked me. Here? All right, I'll make sure to clean up. I'm looking forward to it, I replied. On my next day off, I nervously met Jake's fiancée, Emily Garcia, for the first time. Nice to meet you. I'm Jake's older brother, Ethan. Please come in, I greeted her.
Nice to meet you. Do you live here?
She asked. Yeah, this is my brother's apartment, Jake answered while she looked puzzled, but I guess she was just not used to coming into a bachelor's apartment and continued the conversation. Yes, sorry it's so cramped. I work at a construction site and usually only come home to sleep, so I don't mind the small space. I never thought Jake would bring his girlfriend here, I said. I met Emily through a client and we're planning to get engaged soon, Jake revealed. Seeing my brother so confident, I was sincerely happy about their engagement. Emily, maybe due to her quiet personality, didn't say much and just kept giving an awkward smile. She must be from a wealthy family. While we were talking, Jake's phone rang. Sorry, it's a work call, he said, and after he left the room, Emily finally spoke.
You said you work at a construction site, Ethan. Which college did you graduate from?
She asked. Actually, I started working after my grandparents died, and I had to take care of Jake like a parent. I dropped out of high school, I explained.
So you didn't finish high school?
She asked. Correct. Unlike Jake, I never liked studying much, and I've been doing the same job since then, I said.
I didn't know that Jake's brother dropped out of high school,
she said with an audible sigh of disappointment. I don't regret giving up on my education even now, but having experienced the harsh reality of how society doesn't accept me as a high school dropout, I suddenly felt anxious about whether I might end up causing trouble for my brother.
I assumed, Ethan, that you must have some prestigious profession since Jake is so accomplished, but it seems I was mistaken,
she said. A prestigious profession.
It's impossible to regain that now. All I ask is that you don't interfere with our happiness.
I have no intention of doing that. I want Jake to be happy. As I said this, she slightly raised the corners of her mouth and gave a fake smile. I could tell she was forcing it. When Jake returned, she grew quiet again. I wondered if Jake knew about her behavior, but I didn't know how to communicate this to him. Ethan, thanks for hanging out today, especially on your day off. I'm glad you were able to meet her, Jake said, radiating happiness. Not long after, I received an email announcing their official engagement. Then, about a week before the wedding, I received a call from an unknown number. It was Emily.
Hello? It's Emily from the other day. Do you remember me?
Just hearing her speak reminded me of our previous encounter, and I felt a tinge of discomfort. Of course, I remember you. Is something wrong?
I have a small favor to ask of you today.
A favor for me? Is it some surprise for the wedding? If there's anything I can do, just let me know, I jovially responded. buoyed by the thought of helping.
Yes, about the wedding. Could you perhaps not attend?
She asked. Excuse me? Not attend? I can't imagine not being there for Jake's wedding. I'm his only family.
You may not be aware, but my father is a senior executive at a bank. It's frowned upon for him to attend a ceremony where the other party has no parents or relatives. So we thought we might hire some actors to attend.
Actors?
There's a service that provides people to play the roles of families and relatives. They'll come if we ask, so we thought we'd go that route.
And Jake is okay with this?
Well, the wedding is for me, after all. I plan to discuss this with him, so could you perhaps tell Jake that you have a work conflict? No, please do so.
I highly doubt Jake would agree to this. I want to celebrate him too.
If we don't do this, we might not even be able to hold the wedding. It was hard enough to get my father to approve of our marriage, so please don't interfere anymore.
You're calling the brother of your future husband an interference? There's a pause on the other end of the line, followed by a small sigh.
I just don't understand why you, with no education to boast of, or any respectable job, feel entitled to attend. Frankly, it would be embarrassing for us.
With that, she hung up. I was left stunned. For the first time, I felt ashamed of myself. Granted, I'm not someone impressive, being a high school dropout, and it seemed that even getting approval for their marriage was a struggle because of me. I didn't want to cause Jake any embarrassment. That was the one thing I wanted to avoid. So I decided to call Jake. Hey Ethan, it's referee to call, what's up? Actually, about the wedding. I've got a work commitment that day I cannot miss. I'm really sorry, but I won't be able to attend. What? Why? I thought you cleared your schedule for that day. Yes, I had. As the supervisor on site, it was hard for me to take a day off, but I made arrangements for that day. I thought about my coworkers who said, "You have to go on that day, congratulate Jake for us." And I felt a surge of emotions. I can't get out of it. Since I'm the supervisor, I can't leave. I see. That's disappointing. But if you can make it, even if it's for a short while, please come. I want you to be there. I got it. If I finish early, I'll be there. Congratulations, Jake. Yeah, thank you. Promise me, okay? After hanging up the phone, tears wouldn't stop streaming down my face as I pondered on Jake's emotions. The fact that he wanted me, his imperfect brother, to be present at his wedding was somewhat consoling. I felt as if I had regained a fragment of my bruised self-esteem that Emily had shattered. On the day of the wedding, with no particular place to go, I decided to go fishing to escape my suffocating loneliness at home. It's something I hadn't done much of since I started working, but I always had a favorite fishing spot. It's a place where I wouldn't run into any of my colleagues. As I cast my fishing line, the familiar feeling made me tear up all over again. I was alone, and for a while, I wanted to cry freely. I wanted to release my feelings of frustration, loneliness, and pity for Jake into the ocean. After having a good cry, I suddenly sensed a presence. When I turned around, I recognized a figure standing with a fishing rod. "Oh, Mr. Brown?" I quickly wiped my tears with my sleeve and turned around again. Mr. Brown was wearing a nostalgic smile. "Ethan, it's been a while since you've come here. What makes you look so sad?" "Ha, you are observant as ever." Embarrassed that he'd seen me crying, I told Mr. Brown everything about why I couldn't attend the wedding, laughing and crying as I did so. If anyone could soothe my turbulent heart, it would be Mr. Brown. I had such a hunch. "That's harsh, Ethan. You're an admirable man. There's no reason to feel ashamed. I know that better than anyone else." "Stop making me cry." "Hey, Ethan, do you think this is the place to be crying?" "But if I show up, won't I interfere with Jake's happiness? Do you think your brother will truly be happy if his big brother doesn't come to his once-in-a-lifetime wedding?" "Well, Jake values you more than you think." I remembered what Jake told me. He said he wanted me to come, even if I was late. "You should go. Come on, get going." "Thanks, Mr. Brown. All right, I'll go. I hurried home to get ready for my beloved brother. Each word of Mr. Brown's pushed me forward. When I arrived at the wedding venue, Jake and Emily were still waiting in the backstage room. Bro, you made it in time. I'm so glad. Next to the joyful Jake, Emily suddenly made a sour face.
Well, this is inconvenient.
Why is it inconvenient for my brother to come?
I had to invite someone to fill his seat since he said he couldn't come. That's why.
Probably some sort of fake relative, I suppose. With the wedding entrance time closing in, Emily seemed more irritable and frantic than usual. I just wanted to congratulate Jake today. When I said this to Emily, she finally blew up.
Ethan, this isn't what we agreed on, is it? Why won't you listen to me? We're running out of time.
That's because I'm Jake's brother.
And what? Brotherly love? I'm so tired of it. How would it look if someone found out that the groom's brother is someone like you, a high school dropout?
Even in front of Jake, Emily yelled.
I'll get my dad to kick you out, so don't move!
Suddenly, the backstage door swung open roughly, and Emily's father came in looking flustered. Emily, where is Ethan?
Wait, what? What's going on, Dad?
She asked. One of our bank's major clients just contacted us wanting to close their account. The bank is in panic mode. When I asked for the reason, they said you had...
What, me?
Emily interrupted. Yes, apparently they said they would seize all transactions with us, unless you change your disrespectful attitude towards Ethan. They suspect it's a matter of dignity, Emily's father explained. Emily glared at me sharply.
Ethan, did you do something? Like spreading rumors to damage my reputation on social media or something?
She asked. I have no idea what you're talking about. I don't understand how my name came up in this. I replied, completely clueless about the situation. Emily's attitude? Breaking the agreement? You mean the reason you suddenly couldn't come was because Emily arranged it? Jake asked, suspicion creeping into his voice.
That's a terrible thing to say.
Emily began, probably searching for an excuse. I cut off whatever she was going to say. I made up my mind not to come because she called me a disgrace, but I realized I was wrong and rushed over. I admitted.
Hang on, Ethan.
Jake was stunned. Emily, did you tell my brother he's a disgrace?
Because...
Emily stammered, struggling to find her words. Ignoring her flustered state, Jake spoke in a stern voice. Thanks to Ethan, I managed to get through college. I can't thank him enough. I'm sorry, Ethan. I'm truly sorry. It's okay, Jake. You don't need to apologize to me. I comforted him. Then Jake glared at Emily. Emily, we're going to have to call off this wedding. That's okay with you, right, Mr. Garcia? If that's what it takes for them to forgive us, I have no problem with it, her father replied.
But wait.
Emily tried to argue, but her father had already left. He probably had to deal with the bank. And so, the wedding dissolved without the bride and groom even making an entrance. According to Jake, Emily ended up losing her job at the bank due to losing their trust, and her father received disciplinary actions, getting transferred and demoted to a different state. Emily didn't want to leave, so she came crying to Jake and told him everything. But Jake had no lingering feelings for Emily. Hearing about what she had done to me and realizing her true nature had a significant impact. Apparently, her coworkers didn't think highly of her either, and this message from the major client was the final straw. There are lots of bad rumors about her, and it seems there's no chance of her making a comeback, Jake explained. I see. But let's be glad we found out her true colors before you two got married, I suggested. Yeah, that's true. By the way, aren't you curious about who the major client is? I guess so. Who could it be? I work in construction. I don't know anyone who could shake up a bank that much. Actually, there's one person who comes to mind, Jake said. He had looked into who the major clients might be, and one of the company's chairman's names looked familiar. Do you know Mr. Brown's first name? He asked. Mr. Brown? I remember our grandpa used to call Mr. Brown by his first name, often referring to him as Tom, Tommy, or even Thomas. Yeah, I think it's Thomas, I confirmed. Bingo. Did you tell Mr. Brown about the wedding, Ethan? Yeah, I did, but... Jake was grinning from ear to ear as he told me about Mr. Brown. Turns out, Mr. Brown was the chairman of a major corporation that their bank does business with. On my next day off, I went out fishing again. Despite the urgency in my heart, my legs weren't keeping up, and I stumbled my way to my usual fishing spot. Mr. Brown! Hey there, did the wedding go smoothly? Mr. Brown was smiling broadly at his usual spot. Mr. Brown. Ethan, you've been crying a lot lately. You weren't such a crybaby before. I'm sorry for troubling you with my complaints. Trouble? You're my fishing buddy, Ethan. I care about Jake just like you do. It's only natural to help a friend, so don't worry about it. Besides, you shouldn't be thinking about anything when you're fishing. I nodded and sat down next to Mr. Brown, casting my fishing line into the water. All that seemed like a distant memory, as I was back to my usual busy work life. Well, it's not exactly the same as before. There were changes happening around me.
Mr. Smith, I made too much of this. Would you like some?
My typical fast food lunch had recently turned more interesting. That's because the new secretary has been finding reasons to bring me homemade lunches. She was Mr. Brown's granddaughter, and I vaguely remembered her mentioning that she had been the little girl Mr. Brown brought along who used to come fishing with us. You were my first crush, and I could never forget. I can't believe you just remembered me. She pouted as she said this, but the next moment she was smiling. I had grown fond of her sunny disposition, and now she had become someone important to me. I told Jake I had a girlfriend via email, and that same night I received a call from him after a long time. Introduce me to your girlfriend, bro. I'll bring my girlfriend too. Apparently, Jake had a new girlfriend too. The fishing that my grandfather taught me was a solace to my young mind back then. Now, it's become a bond with the people I care about. It's a sunny day today. According to the weather forecast, looks like we're in for a few days of clear skies. I plan to invite my girl on a fishing date with me this weekend.
It seems my husband has been possessed by a devil. I'm giving this house to Susan. If you oppose me, we're getting a divorce. He's planning to give our house, which is under my name, to our eldest son's wife?
Old hag, get out of here ASAP.
The wife who got my husband on her side. I'm changing it to my name, LOL. I can handle a monthly mortgage of about $1,800 easily. It seems my eldest son has joined her. Well, I don't have any attachment to this filthy house anymore. I'll move out then. I will make sure all three of you go to hell. Prepare yourselves. My name is Grace, and I'm 60. I work in an executive position in a major corporation. I live with my husband, Robert, who is 2 years younger. Last year, we renovated our house for our future. Our house was built by my father, and it's quite old. For that reason, it was really worn out, and we wanted to make it easier to live in as we approach our old age. However, because of our age, the loan is a bit high at $1,800. However, it's not an amount we can't afford, and I was told that the loan would be approved since I work in an executive position at a major company. By the way, Robert is a manager at a small restaurant, and his income is less than mine, so apparently it's easier for me to get a loan. It would be difficult for me to keep paying off the loan with my income. It was originally your father's house, and now it's in your name. I feel bad, but could you pay the entire amount? I'll make up for it by contributing more to our living expenses. We discussed this together and decided to renovate. Our home has become so beautiful and comfortable that it's almost unrecognizable. I was so happy that by renovating the house where I had spent my childhood, I could continue to live there forever. That's what I thought. I never thought the day when I would have to leave this house would come. One day, my smartphone vibrates. I'm getting married. I was told this by my eldest son, Jack, over the phone. Jack is 31 years old and a section chief at a major company. Our eldest son has always been diligent, dedicating himself to studying and club activities. He's also very dedicated to his work after being an adult. Because of that, I hadn't heard any rumors about his love life. I was really curious about the woman that Jack was thinking of marrying. Indeed, very intriguing. What kind of woman could she be? If Jack likes her, she must be wonderful. But I wonder if she's scheming something. taking advantage of Jack's lack of dating experience. I was half excited, half anxious about the woman our son would be bringing home for the first time. Then came the day of meeting her. A neat woman with brown hair and wearing a white chiffon dress showed up. "I'm Susan, nice to meet you." She had very good manners and a neat appearance, making a great first impression. "Nice to meet you, Dad, Mom." Showing her clean white teeth, she smiled at us. I can entrust Jack to her. That's what I was thinking, and Robert also seemed to feel the same way, smiling broadly. "She's a good girl," as Robert murmured quietly. "I'm very pleased to hear that from you, sir. I'm looking forward to getting along with you," she said, clutching Robert's hand and looking into his eyes. What on earth is she doing? Surprised by her close distance, I pulled back a bit. Jack seemed surprised too, but Robert didn't seem bothered. I wasn't jealous, but it was not a pleasant feeling. What are you doing?" Thinking it wasn't good for Jack, I addressed Susan. Then, in a flustered manner, she said,
"Oh, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have done that on our first meeting. I'm really sorry."
and immediately let go of Robert's hand.
I often hear from everyone that I don't understand personal space. I don't mean any harm, I just end up doing it. I'm really sorry.
She doesn't seem like a bad person. But I couldn't hide my surprise at her behavior even though my first impression was good. But Jack was head over heels for her. Also for her behavior. Susan may not understand personal space, but I think that's one of her good points. She approached me even though I'm shy and have trouble approaching women. That's why I'm able to be in a relationship with Susan and even considering marrying her. I didn't expect the usual introverted Jack to change this much due to Susan's behavior. I entrust Jack to you. I had a lot of speculation, but I recognize she's a good person. I approved their marriage, and then things moved quickly and they got married a few weeks later. I wished them all the happiness from the bottom of my heart. Half a year after their marriage, one day, "I'm home, huh?" When I got home from work, I saw a woman's shoes at the entrance. In the living room, there was Susan. "Ah, welcome back, mother-in-law." Looking at the table, there was lots of empty cans and bottles of booze. It seemed they had been drinking. What is this?" Why were they having a drinking party without Jack? Being curious, I asked. "Well, when I was coming back home from work, I bumped into Susan. She said she wanted to get along with me better, so we decided to have a drink. But I'm broke before payday, so I suggested we drink at home." Why have a drinking party at home? It would be better if Jack was also there, and I didn't want to intrude on the newlyweds. They could have just drank at Jack and Susan's place. I asked while tilting my head.
It would have been fine at our place, but this house is so beautiful. And right now, our place is a mess.
Susan, who wasn't pronouncing words properly. I was surprised because she usually speaks politely, but she started speaking casually, probably because she was drinking. But why were they drinking together? Why didn't you invite Jack? For a daughter-in-law to come to her in-law's house alone, and to come for drinks while they're newlyweds, I think it's a little out of the ordinary. From the moment I saw the two of them, I had been looking for Jack.
Jack is, he's so caught up in the busy season at work, and I've been working overtime nonstop. That's why I'm just so lonely.
Susan starts to cry as she says this. Shush now, Susan, it's not your fault. The one to blame is Jack for leaving his newlywed wife alone. Robert begins to console her, stroking her hair.
Oh, daddy-in-law.
What a bizarre scene. It's rather nauseating. Hey, Robert, Susan is your daughter-in-law. It's disrespectful to Jack. You shouldn't act like this. I scold Robert for his inappropriate behavior, but then...
Don't scold daddy-in-law, please.
Susan stands up for Robert. What? Her response was so absurd I couldn't help but blurt out my confusion. I had a lot to say, but after a tiring day at work, I couldn't be bothered. I'm going to take a bath. Please clean up after. I sigh as I head to the bathroom to escape. Then I call Jack to explain the situation. He says he'll stop working and come to pick Susan up right away. I see Susan as a bit eccentric, but Jack must really love her to be willing to leave work and come get her. But it might be a bit challenging to live with her after marriage. I may not be the best mother-in-law, but once Jack arrives, I've decided to offer him some advice on married life. Time flies as I soak in the tub, lost in thought. Feeling a bit lightheaded, I head to the living room, where I find Jack has arrived to pick up Susan. Or so I thought. But despite having driven here, he's drinking. Jack, you drove here, right? You're not supposed to drink. I question him, and he cheerfully replies in a tipsy state. No, Susan said she wanted to drink, so I decided to stay the night. I'm glad my son will be staying over, but the daughter-in-law who's left a bad impression is here too, and all of a sudden, I'm honestly baffled. But Jack's already been drinking. I can give you guys a lift. I really don't want the daughter-in-law to stay over. Despite being tired, I propose to drive them home, but then... No, I feel bad for you. You must be tired too. How about you join us for a drink? Jack suggests with an easygoing smile. I can't say anything more. Huh? At this moment, something felt off. Suddenly, Susan cracked a mischievous smile. Yes, indeed. It was as if she was laughing at my bewildered state. It's just my imagination, right? I tried to convince myself it was just a misunderstanding, but in fact, her incredibly terrific plan had already begun at that point. The next day, Susan kept apologizing for her blunder. I'm truly sorry, she said and left, and I felt relieved as if a storm had passed. Then that day when I got home, Susan was there again. There was no sign of Jack. I was filled with a sense of despair, but the situation was different from the day before. I'm sorry to disturb you again, but I really wanted to apologize, she said, offering me some sweets. I guess I got carried away. My bad. Robert seemed remorseful. It was a bit annoying, but they seemed to be reflecting, so I should let it go this time. I forgave them. Thank you. And maybe because Susan felt quite awkward about the whole thing, she stopped coming over. Frankly, I didn't want to deal with her much, so I was grateful for the outcome. So I thought. Until one day. Robert came to me with a serious face, saying he had something to talk about. As I was wondering what it was and stayed in the living room, Jack and Susan came home. It's been a while. I greeted them, but for some reason, I was ignored? Did they not hear me? As I was wondering, Robert suddenly shouted, I'm giving this house to Susan. If you object, we're getting a divorce. What? As I thought he was suddenly blabbering about he's giving the house to Susan, I didn't understand. As I was taken aback, Mother-in-law, please leave. Susan said that. What? What does that mean? I was in chaos. Hold on, what do you mean you're giving the house to Susan? When I questioned, Robert answered, You've been bullying Susan all this time, doing such a stupid thing. Bullying? Baseless. That's impossible. But no matter how much I argued, Robert wouldn't listen. Shut up, she said so. That's why she was crying that she couldn't come home until now. Robert kept yelling, and Susan was shedding tears. Why did it come to this? Then Jack snapped, as if to join in. I didn't think my mother would do something like that. This is seriously messed up. The more I denied it, the angrier the two of them got, and Susan was overflowing with tears. That's why I'm divorcing you. Get out now. I'm staying here with the two of them. Why on earth should I have to give my house to Susan? When I ask, he retorts, Because Susan is deeply hurt. Normally we should be demanding compensation, but I think there's a better way. To take away your precious house and give it to Susan. That way, it should inflict appropriate damage on you, right? I didn't bully her. Why do I have to be hurt? Besides, there's no way Susan, who quit her job when she got married, can pay an $1,800 loan. When I say that, he replies, Don't worry, the title will be in Jack's name. With Jack's salary and previous employer, we can immediately change the title. Even so, since the loan is in place, changing the title is basically difficult. If it were that easy to change the loan, anyone could buy a house. I don't think the bank will approve it. When I say that, Robert says, You work for a big corporation, and so does Jack, so it should be okay. Plus, one of my friends works at the bank where you have your loan. I think we can talk to him and everything will be okay. It's unclear where such confidence came from. That's right, an $1,800 loan is no big deal, LOL. Jack, brimming with confidence, led by Robert's words. It has become a real matter that I will have to hand over the house. I've said it over and over, I haven't bullied her, so I absolutely won't give up the house. When I object, they both blow up again. Ugh, this is too much. As I'm getting fed up, Susan, who has been crying the whole time, speaks up.
Mother-in-law, for the sake of this child, please.
Susan pleads, stroking her belly. No way. Mom, Susan is pregnant. If she remains as mentally unstable, she might have a miscarriage, right? So please, give in. She announces her pregnancy here. Stress is indeed a big enemy during pregnancy, but that doesn't mean I should give up my house because of some unfounded accusations. I remain perplexed. Just leave me alone for a bit. I leave the scene and go to the bedroom. Bullying? Have I unknowingly been horrible to Susan? As I'm lying on the bed riddled with worry. What's this? There's a strand of brown hair on the bed. Both Robert's and my hair are black. There's no way a strand of brown hair could fall. Wait, has there been an affair? On top of the early argument, now this awful truth is revealed. My mind is on the verge of exploding. I don't even know what's going on anymore. I cry myself to sleep, and when I wake up, it's night. As I try to enter the living room, I could hear voices. It seems that Jack and Susan aren't back home yet.
I wish I could have a drink too.
You can't, you're pregnant, remember? Robert and Susan, full of enthusiasm. I found no chance to intervene. The mysterious accusation of Susan left me in despair. As I remained unable to enter the living room, suddenly I heard the sound of an intimate encounter. Oh, Susan, I love you.
Stop it, Robert. Jack and my mother-in-law will find out, you know.
Huh? What the hell are Robert and Susan doing? What on earth is happening here? Don't worry, Jack is passed out drunk, and Grace hasn't come out of her room for a while. She's probably sleeping already.
LOL, is she sulking? LOL, too funny, LOL.
The brown hair probably belonged to Susan. It's disgusting. What were these two doing on the bed I was sleeping in until just a few moments ago? I feel nauseous. I bet they kicked me out and planned to have a good time with Susan, hidden from Jack. My home, a venue for their illicit affair. Fine. I'll let go of this disgusting home. But you will see consequences. The next morning, I acted as if I'd been asleep in my room and nothing happened in front of the three. Actually, I didn't want to sleep in that bed anymore, and I was too shocked to get any sleep. Finally handing over the house. When I said, I've decided to hand over the house, everyone broke into a grin. Great, let's get the transfer of ownership done. I'm sure I can get a loan approved in no time. Jack is quite excited. This kid probably doesn't know anything. It made me sad, but I won't tell the truth to a son who doesn't listen to his mother and is completely controlled by his wife. Not yet. And then days of hustle and bustle followed with divorce procedures and transfer of ownership. It was quite tough, but somehow we managed to change the ownership. From today, it's no longer your house, Robert cheered.
Get out of here, old lady, LOL,
Susan whispered into my ear. It pissed me off. I'll leave. You don't have to tell me. Letting go of the house I lived in all my life, it was sad, but had become a place of infidelity. No regrets left. From now on, I'll mess with these three and their odd relationship. You all will be sorry for what you did. About a month after I moved out, finally I'm ready. I returned to my former home. When I rang the doorbell, what does a stranger want here? Even after such a long time, Robert was furious. Can I come in? I have something to say, I assertively requested. Why should I let you in my house? Robert is reluctant to let me in. I have something important to say. It's also for Susan's sake. Something important for Susie? As soon as I mentioned her name, he let me in without hesitation. Honestly, I didn't want to say her name because it made me feel sick, but I knew Robert was soft for her, so I played that card. An outsider is here. An outsider? Sure, we're divorced and hence strangers now, but is that the right way to say it? I was irritated by Robert's reaction. What do you want after all this time? The three of them are on high alert. I want you to look at this. What is this? I laid out the photos. The photos are of Robert and Susan on a date. Actually, since we divorced, I had hired a private investigator to tail them. As a result, I obtained photos of them on a date. Just wait a minute. What? Jack is shocked. Then, what are these photos supposed to mean? We're a close father-in-law and daughter-in-law. Nothing more, nothing less.
Yeah, what do you want taking these nonsensical photos?
Two of them insist they're just close. Well then, how about this? I took out my smartphone and played a recording.
I really do love Susan. Hey, if you speak so loudly, Jack and mother-in-law will wake up.
It's a recording of Robert and Susan's voices and their indistinct chatter. What? Actually, the day I discovered the relationship, I had recorded their conversation. No, this is a misunderstanding. Robert desperately tried to explain. What misunderstanding? This is clearly not okay. As expected, Jack was furious. She kept her head down. I decided to add fuel to the fire. Listen, I hate to ask, but who's really the father of that baby in your belly? Jack's face went pale instantly. Do you mean it's with Dad?
No way. My father-in-law was pulling it out every time.
Oh, she dug her own grave.
You just admitted it, didn't you? You just admitted it.
The three of them shouted. Robert and Jack ended up wrestling each other. Ouch! She seemed to have had a cramp in her stomach due to the fight, interrupting their scuffle. Then I immediately said, I've been saying this all along, haven't I? I haven't been bullying Susan. Could it be that you were lying just to drive me away? To make Jack believe? Jack was taken aback. You're kidding. What the hell? That's just messed up. With you guys, and I couldn't trust my own mom. Jack, who couldn't trust his mother and listened to the wicked woman, seemed to be blaming himself. Now that you understand all this, spill everything. Jack shouted angrily at the two of them. They hesitated to confess, but then said, We have enough evidence here. Are we going to court? The word court triggered them, and they finally began to talk. Apparently, at first, she seemed to have loved Jack, but when they came to our newly renovated and beautiful home for their marriage proposal, she wanted a house like ours. My parents' house was pretty rundown, and I was jealous of a beautiful house like this. The interior was quite nice too, she explained while shedding tears. The woman who wanted a house seemed to have planned to win over Robert on the day of the marriage proposal. So she intentionally ambushed Robert after his work without inviting Jack and drank at home. For several months that Jack did not come home, she nurtured love with Robert and seemed to have planned to push me out. Then you should have proposed to live together from the beginning. When I said that, she paused and then answered, I have a bad image of a mother-in-law. My mom and grandma at home fought every day because grandma was bullying my mom. I didn't want to live with a mother-in-law. The only way to live comfortably in a beautiful house was to get the mother-in-law to leave. Surely, with such an image, one would not want to live with a mother-in-law, but stealing your father-in-law. However, what did Robert think about this fact? I knew I was being used, but when she came to greet me, held my hand and smiled, Robert, who fell in love, knew he was being used, but he seemed to have done such a thing to abandon me and keep her by his side. You guys, you're the worst. When Jack said so, the two of them lowered their heads and shed tears. After that, Jack naturally divorced. When he checked the DNA of the child born just in case, it turned out to be Robert's child. I won't pay child support. Saying so, Jack demanded compensation from the two of them. Of course, me too. I can't believe I'm suing my own father for compensation. I patted Jack's head as he sighed in disbelief. That crazy woman had thrown us all for a loop. But the one who's going to regret messing up her life more than any of us is her from here on out. And my hunch was right on the money. Fast forward 2 years, she remarried Robert and decided to stick it out without divorcing, for the sake of their child. She then put the child she had given birth to in daycare so she could work. Oh look, Uncle, came to pick you up today. Apparently she's been getting the side eye from other moms at the daycare. The kids seem to be getting along fine, but she's feeling down because she can't make any mom friends. And when she tried to explain her divorce and remarriage to Robert to her own parents, they were furious, and their anger was directed at Robert. She's been estranged from them ever since. All of this is her own doing. And as for that house, Jack is living there alone. I wanted to sell it, but that would be too harsh on Mom. After all, this is the house where she's been living since she was born, right? A house full of memories. I just can't sell it. I told him I didn't care and that the house was creepy after all that, but he was so guilt-ridden that he couldn't sell it. And maybe because I've been saying that house gives me the creeps too much, he had it professionally cleaned and he threw out all of Robert and Susan's belongings. And Jack, who did all that for me, said, even though it was because of that woman, I did something terrible to Mom. I know you probably won't forgive me, but please, visit me or come to the house on a whim and let me show you some devotion. And with that, he gifted me with a ticket for a hot springs trip. Jack has definitely shown remorse. I can't forgive him yet, but I think I'll try to work towards rebuilding our parent-child relationship as it once was.
I'm sorry for the unappealing meal my unattractive daughter-in-law has prepared. My mother-in-law scolded me in front of our relatives during my father-in-law's 60th birthday celebration. She's not only unattractive, but also inept. I'm truly ashamed. What a disaster. Where was my dependable husband who always cared for me? Was he tending to our daughter? He was nowhere to be found. As soon as I arrived at my in-laws' house, feeling fit as a fiddle, my mother-in-law suddenly complained of chronic back pain and became unable to move as the party preparation began. She delegated all the preparation work to me. Later, she continued to belittle me in front of our gathered relatives who were there to celebrate my father-in-law. She turned the once lively and cheerful mood into something resembling a wake. Then, my father-in-law stood up and broke the silence.
Is that all you have to say?
No one could have foreseen the series of unimaginable events that this single phrase would trigger. I'm Sarah, and I'm 35 years old. 6 years ago, I married my husband, Michael, who is 3 years younger than me. We also have a 5-year-old daughter. My mother-in-law seemed displeased with me since I was older than her son. Every time we visited her house during New Year's, Memorial Day, or national holidays, she'd make sarcastic remarks at me in my husband's absence. I wish I had a younger, vibrant, and cuter daughter-in-law, not a woman full of age spots like you. Do I really look that old? Yes, very! Don't you see your own face in the mirror every day? It does hurt to be criticized about your appearance, especially as a woman. But I thought it was better not to make a big deal of it since we had only met a few times a year. However, this seemed to irritate her even more and she began to use more harsh words. You're quite thick-skinned for an old woman. You don't get upset no matter what I say. I find it annoying that you don't show a shred of modesty. Yeah. What should I say to my mother-in-law, who only says things that make me feel at a loss for words? In front of my husband, she hides her true dark nature and speaks kind words to me. My husband seems to have no idea that I'm being mistreated by her. But if I were to accidentally vent my frustrations, I would likely be the one blamed, so I've always held back. Visiting the house with my mother-in-law present felt truly burdensome. However, it was a significant celebration for my kind father-in-law's 60th birthday. Many relatives were gathering, and we were having a grand event, so I decided to attend. My father-in-law is a quiet man who doesn't talk much, but he wraps me in his subtle kindness. When I'm feeling down because of my mother-in-law's nasty words, he gently approaches me and speaks to me.
Sarah, if you're having a hard time, feel free to tell me. If it's alright, I'd like to be there for you.
I wonder if my father-in-law realized that I was being harassed by my mother-in-law. But to protect me from further harassment behind the scenes, he consciously refrained from openly supporting me. To celebrate such a warm-hearted father-in-law, our family left early in the morning and drove 3 hours to our in-laws' house. I was feeling a bit under the weather with the low-grade fever and lingering fatigue, so my husband, Michael, took it upon himself to do all the driving. On reaching my in-laws' place, my mother-in-law stepped lightly out of the front door with a gleeful expression. Well, well, look who's here. It's been a while, Michael. You should show your face more often. Oh dear, you look tired.
Well, I've been driving non-stop, so it can't be helped.
I see, you've worked hard. I'll get the bed ready right away. Why don't you go rest in the back room?
I think I'll take you up on that. Sarah, you should get a rest too. You've been taking care of the kid in the car. You must be tired. Besides, you don't seem well.
Oh dear, Michael. You didn't know? I called Sarah yesterday and we planned to go shopping together for the 60th birthday celebration. You go and rest. Sarah, once you've put the luggage at the entrance, we'll head out. Of course, no such communication had come and I don't remember making any such shopping promise. Having looked after our energetic 5-year-old daughter, I'm exhausted. And since I'm not feeling well, I'd like to rest too.
Since Sarah's not feeling well, let her rest. The shopping can be done by you.
But it's your father's big celebration. I want to choose the best ingredients with Sarah. Sarah, you'll keep your promise with me, right? She certainly knows how to make a good excuse. Without giving me a chance to refuse after setting down the luggage, she forcefully pulled me by the arm and shoved me back into the car we had just gotten out of. Then, glaring at me fiercely, she snapped, I don't think you need time to rest. However, right after that, she switched her expression to a big smile and loudly said, Thank you for driving the car. I'm so happy. Knowing my mother-in-law, if I opposed her now, it would surely make the whole day a disaster. I reluctantly got into the driver's seat. I'm fine, so Michael, you just rest. I'll go shopping with mother-in-law. As I tried to hand over our daughter to Michael, mother-in-law took my daughter from my arms and swiftly seated her in the child seat, quickly closing the door. Looking after the child is a mother's duty. Well, Michael, we're off. Once she got into the passenger seat, Her sweet tone from before completely changed as she started berating me. So, you can't even look after your child properly? Stop using Michael for your convenience. You're just an incompetent daughter-in-law who's only aged. What was terrifying was that she maintained a sweet facade since Michael was still nearby. Oblivious to all this, Michael waved us goodbye. I drove my unfamiliar husband's car toward a large supermarket. Of course, there was no way mother-in-law would stay quiet during the drive, and she started lecturing me right away. I'll make you regret lazing around while making my son drive. Mother-in-law, please don't say such scary things. I've been feeling feverish and fatigued since this morning. Your poor health is due to your bad management. Also, your crow's feet have increased, and the spots on your cheeks have darkened. I can't even bear to look, and your skin has lost its elasticity. I had lost all my energy to respond to her harsh words, and barely managed to arrive at the supermarket nodding along the way. This is really exhausting. I wonder how all the other daughter-in-laws in the world managed to endure such treatment from their mothers-in-law. My high-spirited mother-in-law, without even a word of thanks, jumped out of the car and swiftly handed me 2 shopping carts. You're so slow! Get a move on! When I tried to avoid the crowds, she swiftly moved forward, filling the shopping basket with luxury foods like USDA prime beef, crab, salmon roe, and melons. And then she started to add in things clearly not needed for the day. Mother-in-law, do we need these urgently? I asked. We're bulk buying, so we don't have to come to the supermarket again and again. You should know that without being told, she replied. Feeling helpless, I let her do as she pleased. By the time we finished shopping, the 2 baskets were piled high. We're going to check out. Hurry up, stop dilly-dallying. Despite her rush, when it came time to pay at the counter, my mother-in-law showed no intention of taking out her wallet. Mother-in-law, the payment, I began, but with her hands folded behind her, she didn't move an inch. When I asked for the money again, she glared at me and got angry. You should pay for everything. Excuse me? I stammered. As a wife, it's your duty to entertain your husband's father. Don't be stingy and just pay. I ended up having to pay a total of $300 at the cash register to avoid making a scene. Not having any cash on me, I paid with my credit card. As a part-time worker trying to raise a child, this was a significant blow to my finances. And to make matters worse, I had brought $300 as a birthday gift for my father-in-law's 60th birthday, but I couldn't use that. The expense meant I would have to cut back even more on our living costs in the future, and the burden that had already been heavy just became even heavier. I wonder how I should tell this to Michael. If I report this, mother-in-law might cause a fuss. During the car ride home, my mother-in-law kept hurling insults at me. It was almost impressive how many different insults she could come up with. By the time we arrived home, my husband was still asleep, probably due to exhaustion. Upon seeing this, my mother-in-law smiled slyly and began to take advantage of me. After you put away the groceries, go weed the garden right away. Please, can I rest a bit? You have no right to defy your mother-in-law. This is the consequence for making Michael drive alone. So this is what you meant by making me regret, I murmured. If you have time to move your mouth, just go and move your hands. Hurry up, we're short on time. After weeding, clean the bathroom and the toilet. Despite the unfairness of the situation, I had no choice but to endure it for the day. I weeded the garden and then cleaned the grimy, yellow-stained bathroom and toilet, thinking that once the 60th birthday celebration was over, I wouldn't have to see my mother-in-law for a while. My husband woke up just as I had finished cleaning and looked surprised to see me.
Sarah, are you okay? If you're not feeling well, don't overwork yourself. Take a break now.
Thank you. I'll take you up on that offer.
Ouch! That hurts!
Just as I was about to lie down, my mother-in-law suddenly let out a loud yell, clutching her back. Although she had been lively just moments before, she started complaining about sudden back pain. My mother-in-law, who always presents a gentle demeanor in front of my husband, suddenly let out a weak voice.
This is troublesome. My back hurts so much, I can't do anything. My chronic back pain has flared up again. I won't be able to cook before the relatives gather. Sarah, you're my only hope. But oh, what should I do?
As much as her sorrowful demeanor seemed a bit staged, if her chronic back pain was genuine, then it would indeed be impossible for her to stand in the kitchen. Reluctantly, I pushed my weary body, asked my husband to look after our daughter, and started cooking.
Sarah, are you sure you're okay?
I'm fine. I always cook, remember? To my husband, I put up a brave front, but my body was already fatigued. Yet, it was an important day for my father-in-law. I felt that I couldn't afford to take a break. My head is spinning. and somehow the smell of food is making me sick. But I have to keep going for my father-in-law. After I managed to finish cooking, my father-in-law came into the kitchen to check on me.
You've worked hard. Thank you for preparing all this food.
Not at all. It's for you. Please enjoy it later. After that, the relatives started gathering one after another. Everyone wished my father-in-law well, creating a lively atmosphere. As we finished the toast and were about to start eating, my mother-in-law started saying something shocking. I'm sorry, everyone, but due to my chronic back pain flaring up on this important birthday celebration, the food was all cooked by my daughter-in-law. I apologize for the unappetizing food made by my unattractive daughter-in-law. Both my father-in-law and husband froze at my mother-in-law's sudden outburst. My daughter-in-law is not only unattractive, but she's also clumsy, a total failure. It's truly pitiful. Ouch! My mother-in-law exaggeratedly rubbed her back, continuing to disparage me. She's so clumsy that without my support, she can't do anything. I wonder if she can even take care of her own child. I'm so worried about whether Michael can manage with such a woman as his wife. What was supposed to be a festive atmosphere quickly turned gloomy, resembling more of a wake than a celebration. My usually supportive husband, who was supposed to be looking after our daughter, was nowhere to be found. At that moment, my father-in-law, who had been sitting quietly, suddenly stood up.
Is that all you wanted to say?
Huh?
Seems like it. Maybe we should kick out the useless one then.
Following his words, my husband entered the room, holding our daughter in a suitcase. His face was unusually stern.
Dad, as you said, I've packed her stuff.
My mother-in-law smiled at the sight, seemingly pleased. Sarah, looks like you're getting kicked out. Hehehe. But to her surprise, my husband handed the suitcase to her. What? My father-in-law's booming voice added the final blow.
Take that and get out of this house right away!
Although she seemed unable to comprehend what was happening, my mother-in-law quickly understood the situation. Why should I be the one kicked out? It's Sarah who's useless.
The bathroom is always covered in mold, the toilet left dirty, and you call Sarah useless when you barely cook anything? Not to mention how harshly you've been treating her. I've had enough.
It's the mother-in-law's duty to discipline the daughter-in-law. I was only pointing out her shortcomings.
Discipline? What era do you think we're living in?
Realizing that an angry father-in-law, eyebrows raised, wouldn't take her side, mother-in-law turned to her usual theatrics and began crying to my husband.
Michael, don't misunderstand. We might need to take care of your father someday, right? So, I was teaching Sarah how to be a good wife. As tough as that was.
Take care of him? That's a laugh. I won't be fooled by you anymore. You've just been bullying Sarah. Even today, despite feeling unwell, she came along to celebrate Dad's 60th birthday.
Sarah volunteered to celebrate, didn't she?
Don't lie. You also made her pay for the groceries, didn't you? I found a receipt from today in her bag when she was trying to take out candies for our daughter. It shows that Sarah paid with her credit card.
I just asked her to pay because I didn't have any cash on hand. I was planning to pay her back, honestly.
Really? If I hadn't noticed, you would have just kept quiet. I've turned a blind eye to the common mother-in-law and daughter-in-law issues, but you're going too far. I'm fed up with living with a spiteful old woman.
Seeing my husband and father-in-law turn away from her, mother-in-law began to blame me with all her usual acting prowess, tears streaming down her face.
So, Sarah has been making false accusations about me. That's terrible. You're all making me the villain.
No, I haven't said anything, but it's a fact that you've been bullying me, isn't it? For the sake of father-in-law and my husband, who had gone to great lengths for me, I gathered the courage and spoke the truth for the first time. I would no longer let mother-in-law have her way.
That's right. We heard about it from Mia. We also know about the nasty comments you made about Sarah at the supermarket and in the car. Afterwards, you made Sarah do all the weeding and cleaning the bathroom and the toilet.
Yeah, Grandma was mean to Mommy. She made her clean a lot of places. You can't trust what a child says.
Mia doesn't lie. Let's check the dash cam footage. That should clear everything up. Michael, could you do that?
Good idea, Sarah. I'll do that right away.
What is that?
Ignoring his mother's question, Michael went to the car parked outside, started the engine, and began playing the dash cam footage. The latest device, which can also record the inside of the car, was installed, so even facial expressions were clear.
Ah, it's showing. she was saying these things. I'm shocked. Everyone, come over here and watch this. Relatives who had followed to see what was happening all checked the footage. Upon viewing, they began to comment. This is terrible indeed. Wow, this is the worst. Mother-in-law, who had stayed in the house insisting she wasn't at fault, began to panic as the atmosphere grew tense and ran barefoot toward the car. Everyone was taken aback by her swift movements, despite her supposed back pain. So, the back pain was just an act then.
I'm all better now.
After casually responding to my words, she tried to awkwardly seat herself in the driver's seat to turn off the dash cam. But she was firmly held by my father-in-law, making it impossible for her to move.
Stop this right now. Don't look at them.
But it was too late. No amount of yelling could help her. With all her misdeeds exposed, my mother-in-law, stunned and speechless, sank down helplessly. That's when my father-in-law casually handed her a single piece of paper. I filled in my part. You just need to write your part and submit it.
What? Isn't this a divorce form?
I had it prepared just in case. I never thought I'd have to use it. Don't ever cross my doorstep again.
Wait a minute. I promise to stop harassing Sarah. Please forgive me.
The sight of my mother-in-law begging for forgiveness with tears in her eyes was truly pitiful. But this too was likely an act. I firmly pushed my mother-in-law away. You let the cat out of the bag about bullying your daughter-in-law at the end. I will never forgive you. You might want to leave before the neighbors gather around.
Oh no, this is terrible.
The commotion attracted the attention of neighbors who watched from a distance. Perhaps not wanting to make a scene, she promptly took the divorce form and suitcase, and her supposed back pain was nowhere to be found. She rushed out of the garden. The villain had been dealt with, but I returned home filled with guilt. I'm sorry for all this during your 60th birthday celebration, Dad. When I earnestly apologized, he responded, Sarah, you did nothing wrong. I'm sorry for all the trouble we've caused. Let's start over. My father-in-law smiled. The relatives also watched with kind expressions. Later, they praised the dishes I had prepared and ate heartily. At that moment, all the fatigue seemed to fly away. Thus, we celebrated my father-in-law's 60th birthday in a grand manner. My mother-in-law, who was initially reluctant to agree to the divorce, eventually agreed, and they divorced amicably. It was also revealed that she had been misappropriating funds from my father-in-law's account, and she was ordered to repay $10,000 that she had spent recklessly. Unable to find work due to her lack of experience, she now works as a janitor in an office building late at night. With barely any money left, she lives in a rundown apartment that's seen better days. On the other hand, I found out that I was pregnant with my second child. It seemed that the feeling of discomfort I had earlier was due to my pregnancy. 5 months have passed since then, and my husband Michael has been very caring. The ultrasound revealed that we're expecting a boy. Both Michael and my father-in-law are looking forward to his arrival. Already excited, my father-in-law sent over blue baby clothes. My adorable daughter is overjoyed at the thought of having a younger brother and practices taking care of a baby with her dolls every day. Watching her gives me immense happiness.
My name's Justin. I'm 32 and I run my own business. Today, I'm out with my wife, Lily, visiting an open house for a newly built condominium complex. Wow. A brand new condo complex, huh? I heard there are 3 different model units, each with a unique concept. I wonder what the concepts are. It's exciting, isn't it? Definitely. The person I spoke with when we booked our visit was so pleasant it made me look forward to it even more. We were buzzing with anticipation as we headed to the property. The area, recently revitalized, was becoming increasingly popular, and quite a crowd had gathered for the open house. Excuse me, we had an appointment for the open house? We approached a sales representative standing by the condo. When we spoke from behind, he turned around with a pleased look on his face. But then, "You two are here for the tour?" The salesman frowned in an instant and stared at us, the couple, rudely. We weren't dressed inappropriately or anything. He sighed heavily and jerked his head toward the entrance. "Please, go this way." "Thank you." We were a bit taken aback by his strange behavior, but with the presentation time closing in, we made our way to the venue. Oh, this room is so cute. I liked the classy one we saw earlier, but I love bright colors, so maybe this one is more my style. By the time we were exploring the model units, Lily and I had forgotten all about the sales rep and were completely absorbed in evaluating the rooms. The windows are large, which gives a sense of openness, and the view isn't half bad, right? It might be a big plus. As for the layout, well, this type would provide plenty of storage, even if we have a lot of stuff. Doesn't that sound good? After we'd looked around all the rooms, we settled down at one of the provided tables and started looking through the brochures, discussing our impressions. At that moment, the same sales rep from before brought some refreshments and started serving them to each table. Thank you for coming by today. How was everything? If you have any questions, don't hesitate to ask me. My name is Brown. In stark contrast to his attitude at the entrance, he was smiling and making polite conversation at each table. However, he breezed past our table with a pause and without leaving any refreshments for us. Huh? Lily and I just stared, dumbfounded. Eventually, after he had finished serving everyone else, he glanced our way and seemed to smirk before moving on. Hey, that guy, Lily whispered to me, furrowing her brows. You mean the one who was so rude to us at the entrance? Yeah, that's him. We never did receive our drinks or the extra information we'd asked for. The excitement we'd felt had completely vanished, replaced by a sour mood. I thought the ad looked promising. Lily looked disappointed. As we were getting ready to leave, we heard Brown's voice. Apparently, he thought he was alone. Man, that clueless couple today was a real pain. They're so out of touch with their own status, it's just sad. No kidding. Brown shook his head. I saw from a distance they parked their car in the coin-operated lot. They rolled up in a tiny compact car. Never thought they were here for the tour. They looked so plain and broke. They should know their place. Lily and I looked at each other. It seemed like Brown was talking about us. Indeed, we had arrived at the venue in our compact car. Compared to those decked out in designer wear we spotted at the viewing, our attire may have seemed modest. Why should I waste my valuable time on folks like that? I ignored them. They were dumbfounded. Ha ha. Mr. Brown, isn't that not quite right? From now on, let me handle the refreshments and materials. The one to argue with the abrasively laughing Mr. Brown was apparently his junior colleague. Shut up, Johnson. Don't be presumptuous as a newbie. I am the one who will be managing the contracts. You wouldn't dare undermine me for the incentive, would you? No, I didn't mean to. In response to the harshly spoken Mr. Brown, the junior named Johnson closed his mouth, looking distressed. From the following exchanges, it became apparent that the one taking care of all the preparations was Johnson, while Mr. Brown was cherry-picking the good parts of customer service. It kinda ruined my mood. On the way home, Lily let out a sigh. Since we remember these things, let's pass on this apartment today. It's a shame because the show suite was so nice. But it just doesn't feel right. I agree. If we proceed with this, we will likely have to face Mr. Brown again, and given what happened today, I can see where this is going. We decided to look into other properties after discussing it. 2 weeks later. Justin, what do you think about this property? Lily said, pointing at the PC screen. It's a bit over budget, but I'd like to go and see it. Only a few units left, huh? You're weak for these marketing phrases, Lily. You always end up buying things that say limited edition, even sweets. As I teased her, she laughed and said, "Don't compare it to sweets." And we quickly clicked on the button to book a viewing. However, the day of the viewing brought back the nightmare. It happened when we arrived at the venue and tried to get the documents. "You gotta be kidding. Give me a break." A slight tongue click and a familiar voice rang out. When we turned towards the sound, there was Mr. Brown, who had bad-mouthed us at the show suite viewing the other day. We didn't expect to see him again so soon. And upon closer inspection, the person we had asked for the documents was none other than Johnson, the junior colleague. I involuntarily pulled my hand back from taking the documents, but Johnson, who seemed to not remember us, looked puzzled. Then, Mr. Brown interjected. "Excuse me, what is your profession?" His rude question irked me, but I decided to see how he'd react first. "I'm self-employed." "Huh?" Upon hearing my answer, Mr. Brown didn't even bother to hide his mocking expression. "This place is out of your league. It's a waste to even show the last unit on the top floor to people like you, got it?" Mr. Brown, with the feeling that we should go home quickly, started to turn us away. At his behavior, I was the one to say, "What?" this time. Then Mr. Brown showed a smirking smile. "Don't get it? It means no, poor folks. Understand?" "Sir, please stop it. I'm very sorry. Here are the documents." "Johnson, stop messing around and don't increase our workload." Johnson's attempt to intervene was ignored as Mr. Brown took the documents from him. "Are you saying we should choose our customers? I'm not convinced." Lily couldn't help but confront Mr. Brown, but he didn't seem to care at all. Yep, this is a luxury apartment building where high society resides. We decline entrance to the poor." He clearly was implying that they should leave. I couldn't keep quiet and spoke up. "I highly doubt you have been given the responsibility to screen the potential buyers. Could you please call your superior?" But Mr. Brown just shrugged it off. "I can't do anything about what you're saying, like I told you. This property is designed for the affluent upper class. It's not something people like you can afford." His statement was shocking. "Mr. Brown, that's rude to the customers. Please stop. I'm very sorry." A flustered Johnson tried to mediate, but I cut him off. "So we, as a couple, are denied the viewing, right?" Mr. Brown then smiled triumphantly. "Exactly," he said in an arrogant tone, gesturing us towards the exit. "I wouldn't even do it as a favor." Lily, who had been silent next to me, finally lost her temper, and we left the venue indignantly. "What? Wait, please." After we walked some distance, we were stopped by Johnson, who had run after us. "I'm truly sorry. Even though my apologies might not fix anything, I'm really sorry for the terrible rudeness. I don't know how to make it up to you." "Johnson, you should go back." I'm sorry. I must have upset you more by chasing after you." I shook my head as Johnson apologized with sweat dripping down his face. "I can see you're a sincere person. Thanks for your concern, but we'll be heading home now. You should go back too, or Mr. Brown will be mad. Don't worry about us anymore." But... Looking back at the way we had come, Johnson bowed deeply to us again. "Listen, Johnson, we're not really mad. It's okay. We're angry at Mr. Brown, and after such a bad experience, we probably wouldn't feel like buying the place even if we saw it. So, we're going home. but we haven't given up on finding a property. Lily smiled and said, I don't want to see Mr. Brown again, and I definitely don't want to buy a place from someone like him, but if we get another chance, I'd like you to be in charge. Can you do that? Yes, of course. I'll make sure to show you our best property. We were smiling as we watched Johnson bow politely. Then, we received Johnson's business card again and promised to call him when we're ready to see the other properties. While we were handing over our contact details to him, the disgruntled footsteps of Mr. Brown echoed. Johnson, where did you put the contract documents? Geez, you're never around me when I need you. What are you doing? Don't embarrass me. As he yelled, Mr. Brown noticed us and with an exasperated look nudged Johnson. Stop doing useless things. Don't waste your time with these poor folks. There's no gain, not even a cent, or should I say a penny. Now hurry up and get those documents, got it? With that said, Mr. Brown grabbed Mr. Johnson by the scruff of his neck, struggling, and started to backtrack the way he came. Hey, quit the rough stuff. Upon raising my voice with conviction, Brown let out a snort of laughter. Are you still there, poor man? Ah, is that you? You don't like being told that you don't have time to be poor, so you're pretending to be free? Go home early and work hard. He waved his hand as if shooing us away and started to drag Johnson away. Hey, Justin, I'm about to reach my boiling point. Me too. While watching Lily clench her fist, I wholeheartedly agreed. About an hour later, during the drive home in my favorite compact car, when a call came in on my smartphone, I asked Lily to answer it. From the phone, now on speaker, came a pleading voice. Sorry, can you come back right away? The voice had changed, almost like a different person, but it seemed to be that of Brown. What can we help you with? When Lily asked, a hurried reply came. There's something I want to tell you. We don't want to go back to you. What do you want to say? You can tell us over the phone. You sound so haughty. No, nothing. Can you please calm down? As Lily coldly brushed him off, there was a hint of anger in Brown's voice again, but for some reason, it quickly returned to a flattering tone. However, Lily showed no mercy. Well, remember how you said we wouldn't gain even a penny by dealing with you? This call is a waste, so goodbye. But wait. Ignoring Brown's attempt to stop her, Lily hung up the call, and when the phone rang again, she turned it off, deciding it was too much of a hassle. By the way, how much is a penny worth right now? At Lily's serious question, I couldn't help but laugh. I think it's about 0.03 cents in Colombian pesos. 0.03 cents, huh? Do you know a place with a lower rate? If it's Indonesian rupiah, I think it was about 0.009 cents. Then Lily started imitating Brown. Not even a penny to gain by dealing with the likes of us, or rather, not even a rupiah. Hey, do I sound like him? Who's smarter? Both are kinda so-so. You're mean, Justin. And so we chatted away, enjoying a quick lunch before returning home. Then we spotted a figure in front of a certain garage. Hey, Justin, sorry for the trouble of coming back with your car. Robert, that's fine, but you brought them both here? We had no idea this was going to happen, and we're having a meal. Sorry, did we keep you waiting for too long? No, not at all. I'm the one who should be apologizing here. Hey, don't just stand there like a lump. What? The one being threatened and shaking with fear was Brown, who had called us poor. Next to him, Johnson looked bewildered. Feeling sorry for him, I decided to reassure Johnson by revealing the truth. Johnson, relax, it's okay. Robert, the vice president of his company, and I are college buddies. Eh? Not only Johnson, but also Brown opened their eyes wide in surprise. Actually, Justin and I were attending the open house at the request of Robert. Oh, but we were really looking for a property. Who could have thought that things would turn out like this? I confessed. Johnson looked flustered while Brown looked at us in disbelief, as if to ask what we meant. We had asked Justin to dress casually for the viewing. We even arranged for him to use the small car we had prepared. Otherwise, well, look over there. The car in front of our garage is Justin's real vehicle. He's a well-known young investor around town. Brown, you can tell just by looking at that car you couldn't afford it even if you stood on your head, right?
Yes, I apologize.
Brown appeared to be trembling, likely severely chastised by the time we returned. A few months ago, we started receiving complaints at the corporate office. People said they felt looked down upon by salespeople when they went for casual viewings. Everyone was saying the same thing, so I visited the site many times, but you acted polite in front of me, Brown. However, the features match you no matter how I think about it. I asked Justin to confirm once I left the site, and the result is this situation.
Mr. Vice President, could there be some kind of mistake?
Don't screw around. We have the recorded conversation. Do you want to deny it until I play it back, eh?
I apologize.
Brown tried to make excuses, but of course that wasn't going to work. He wilted under Robert's scathing words. You're apologizing to the wrong person.
I am really sorry.
Brown lowered his head as if he were trying to bury it into the ground. But if saying sorry would be enough, there would be no need for the police. Don't think this ends here. You'll take full responsibility. Brown shrank back even more, looking as if he were about to cry upon hearing Robert's muttered threat of damages.
I'm sorry. It really was all my fault, but the compensation.
Brown approached me and Lily as if begging us to shelter him. Robert was the one to grab him by the scruff of his neck. Don't you dare joke around. You assumed based on the appearance and labeled the other party as poor. It's a big mistake to think rich people flaunt their wealth. Do you know how many cancellations we received from high-profile clients due to your reckless behavior? As Robert lectured him in a low voice, Brown grew smaller and smaller. You ruined our company's reputation with your sales tactics. You can understand my anger, right?
But please forgive me.
No chance. Brown's eyes rolled back as he collapsed to the ground. It's been a while since I saw Robert lose his cool like this. It reminded me of our college days. Back then, Robert had stood up for me when I was bullied. He fought upperclassmen to protect me, getting beat up in the process. And once again, Robert saved not just me, but me and my wife, Lily. I owe him big time. I'll treat him to his favorite steak next time. A few days later, Robert invited us for another property viewing. Johnson, of course, was the one in charge until a formal decision was made. Brown had received a pay cut and demotion, working as an office grunt. It seems only natural he's getting a tough time from everyone considering how he treated them before.
Yes, I'll clean the table right away. I'll get the documents. I'm sorry, I'll get them.
I could faintly hear the distinctly different voice of Mr. Brown from before. Later, Mr. Brown was sentenced to pay damages and was struggling to make repayments without his title or duties. Meanwhile, thanks to Mr. Johnson, we managed to acquire our ideal home. Moreover, due to Robert's consideration, we got it at a slightly discounted price. Mr. Johnson also seemed to be making great strides in his performance and was enjoying better treatment. Honesty is such an important thing in life, I thought to myself.